Good evening. I call to order the work study special meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District number 93 Governing Board. It's Monday, April 25th, 2022, and it's 6 p.m. Item 1.2, roll call. All 5 board members are present, and there is a quorum. Present from the cabinet are Dr. Monroe, Dr. Jensen, Ms. Rodriguez, and Ms. Scott. Item 1.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted as presented. Item 1.4, call to fill out forms for a call to the public. We have some, so an admonition will be read in a few minutes. Item 1.5, Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. Number 2, presentations of awards for schools and departments. There are none. Number 3, public comments. Item 3.1, call to the public. And the admonition goes as follows. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are, number 1, board member may respond if there is direct criticism of the board member. 2, board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or 3, board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. All right, and our first speaker will have 6 minutes, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Weiss has given her time over to Jennifer Johnson.
Good evening, President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Miner, and staff and guests. It's my honor to celebrate one of your staff members tonight. I am Jennifer Johnson. I'm the Assistant Vice President at Grand Canyon University in charge of Academic Alliances. And we have a program called Principal of the Month. And we solicit nominations from across the state. We gather lots and lots of different nominations because there are fabulous principals in the K-12 public schools in Arizona. And then we select a principal each month to be able to celebrate, and that's what brings me to your meeting today. So we have a long-standing positive relationship with the Cave Creek Unified School District. I've worked with Dr. Monroe in our Superintendent's Collaborative Network, our Superintendent's Leadership Forum. I get to facilitate superintendents working together on a whole host of issues, and we provide a number of other services. And we're super excited to be able to celebrate one of your principals. So if I could have Aaron Pettinato join me at the time. So the award is intended to be a surprise, and apparently we were successful. So principals are generally nominated by their central office, and often it's a surprise, and then we try to arrange a celebration where we can acknowledge their accomplishments. And we know it's not easy to surprise a principal, so again, thank you very much. Happy that you're here. We know that you've been a principal for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, right? Yeah, great. You've been in the district for 16 years. You did your student teaching at the school where you are now principal. I just want to highlight some of the things that led you to this recognition tonight. One of the things that we're looking for are characteristics of leaders that go above and beyond the average, go above and beyond what you might expect. And Aaron certainly does that, as recognized by his nomination. He always puts students and their families first. And that's easy to say, it's hard to do, and it's been particularly challenging over your tenure as a principal, given everything that everyone has been through. When you faced challenges, you engaged multiple stakeholders to ensure that you could continue to offer high-quality Mandarin language and culture opportunities. So you are collaborative, creative, inventive, and always, again, keeping students first. You've grown an equine program on your campus. That's pretty rare. There aren't very many people who have those kinds of programs. And you aren't afraid to move out of your own comfort zone. In fact, rumor has it you have been seen on a horse. True?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. That you greet students on horseback. Not every principal would do that in Arizona. And you are also an active member of the local Kiwanis Club, and you find ways to serve the community both in and out of the school, and to bring the community into your school and your school out into the community. You have done really remarkable work. The selection committee at Grand Canyon University wanted to make sure that you knew how much we appreciated the work that you do. And on behalf of students and parents and community members that you may never have the opportunity to talk with, I just want to reflect their appreciation and thanks for everything that you do. So we'll get to some goodies inside a cool GCU bag. So if you want to hold that for me for just a second. So we have a framed certificate noting Principal of the Day, or Principal of the Month, sorry. And then we have this specialized GCU Principal of the Month plaque, and this is the only award we use this design for. Wow. So I know purple is your favorite color. and a whole host of other goodies inside the basket.
Thank you very much.
And not last, but certainly not least, this award is co-sponsored by Seoul Architects, and the principal owner of Seoul Architects is Caroline Lobo. If you've been near the GCU campus, she's the person responsible for all of our brand new, beautiful buildings. And she wants you to know how much she also appreciates the work you do to cultivate the next generation of architects and college kids and great community members. So Caroline will be delivering to you a $500 Visa gift card. Wow. You bet. You bet. Well, thank you. And again, Superintendent Minor, you're doing awesome work. Obviously, lots of other organizations recognize what a great district this is, what a long tradition of wonderful work. We appreciate your collaboration. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. And board, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Congratulations. The second speaker is Jennifer Johnson. Oh, sorry. Whoops. The second speaker is Stephanie Liberatori. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
No, you did a great job. Madam President and board members, thank you for allowing me to come and share my thoughts with you. My name is Stephanie Liberatori, and I'm a paraprofessional in our district as well as a parent, and I feel strongly that our district must have an override added to our ballot this year. Our teachers have continued to show up for our students through shutdowns due to COVID, virtual and in-person school, and have gone above and beyond for our students and our families. Our district is one of the lowest paying in Arizona, yet our teachers are dedicated and show up every day to support and educate our students. We should show our support and appreciation for how much they do. This includes, but is not limited to, having competitive wages for our certified and classified staff. Our community must show up and stand up for the teachers and support staff who show up for our children every day. Board members, thank you again for your time and the opportunity to speak of the importance of adding an override to our ballot.
Thank you. Next speaker is Bobby Clendenin.
The second one, Clendenin. Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Monroe and members of the board, I'm here tonight to show my support for a maintenance and operations override for the November ballot. Arizona schools lost funding when voter-approved Prop 208 was overturned, and then our district lost potential funding again when the bond didn't pass. Our district is losing teachers, and our students are losing smaller class sizes and high-quality educators. I was here one night when teachers spoke of the challenges of teaching in these times. They spoke about the lack of support they receive from our community, and they spoke about having to work second and third jobs to make ends meet. If voters approve an override, our community will be speaking directly to our teachers and to our district by saying, yes, we value you, and yes, we want you here. The potential 10% increase in salary for our teachers is not enough, but it's something. We need to start catching up to the surrounding districts to pay, or we will not be able to maintain the quality of education our students have been receiving because teachers and staff will leave. They'll be forced to choose their own survival over our students, and some already have left. The override will bring money to other areas of our district as well, and all will benefit students directly or indirectly in one way or another. The cult of misinformation and disinformation has led certain parents and members of our community to be angry and against our district. My hope for our district and our community is for people to start asking themselves, what am I for, rather than what am I against? It's so easy for people to say they don't like something, but much more engaging to say, how can I help and what do you need? Our district needs people working together, and I appreciate all the efforts of Dr. Monroe and the members of this board that have reached out to educate our community about our district and our budget needs. Everything we need to know as parents and members of the community is either on the CCUSD website or sent to us via newsletters, voicemails, and of course through these board meetings. There is even a free class being offered to help the community understand school budgets. I applaud the efforts to maintain transparency with our community, and I encourage you to continue in those efforts. Dr. Monroe, I am especially thankful for your community outreach when we were trying to pass the bond. I personally know someone who was positively influenced by you and the connection that you made. Educating our community with the facts and pushing back on the falsehoods will be a slow process, but a process that will require our continued participation. How can I help?
Thank you. Next speaker, Amanda Schmidt.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you for hearing me. My name is Amanda Schmidt, and we are a Horseshoe Trails family. The lack of resources and fair compensation for our educators is a growing epidemic in this country. We can't control the national arena, but what we can do is invest in our community and in our schools. I actively serve on our PTO and give freely of my time and my family's money to support our teachers and our school staff, but it's not enough. Thank you gifts and chipping in classroom supplies isn't enough to improve the livelihood of the people who are dedicated to the education, social emotional development, and the care of our youth. This isn't an industry where the workers just need to pull up their bootstraps and get to work. They work tirelessly day in and day out to be leaders and role models in our community, and they deserve to be compensated and supported. The incredible thing about Cave Creek is how we support our community. It's what makes Cave Creek so magical and why we all love living here. We lean in to help our small businesses and the local efforts around us. Right now, we really need to work together to support our educators and our school staff. Our schools are a core component of our community. They're a pillar of what Cave Creek stands for, and they need our investment and our support now more than ever. As a society, every month we spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on coffee or Amazon or dining out, and it's time we're willing to invest a little more in our community through the support of our teachers. For the cost of a couple lattes a month or a night out at Harold's, we could be changing the lives of our educators. I'm here to show support for an override in our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Amy Burns.
Hello, Madam President and board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Amy Burns, and I've taught second grade for 6 years, and this is my first year at Horseshoe Trails. I took quite a large pay cut to move to this district, but I absolutely love what I do. Sorry, I'm used to speaking to second graders all day. Sorry. I'm passionate about this district, and I've felt nothing but love from everyone I've encountered here this year. I've had the opportunity to meet and work with so many different employees from district office to other schools to parents and community members, and most importantly, the students. I instantly felt at home and wouldn't want it any other way. I was so fortunate to be selected to join the CCUSD family this past year, and I absolutely love it here. I'm in full support of an override to help support teachers and classified staff so we can go even further. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jaylene Griffin. Jaylene Griffin.
I 100% support the teachers. They're definitely underpaid. Okay. Let me make it clear. I'm not anti-gay, anti-trans. I talked 2 weeks ago. I'm here to speak again about inappropriate club, GSA, at Sonora Middle School. That unless you can prove otherwise that this club is supervised by parents, an unbiased adult, someone other than Kelly Love. What goes on behind closed doors? Ask yourself that question. Again, if these kids are emotionally and having issues, this is not the forum or the format to help them. The solution is these are 11, 12, 13-year-olds. They are confused. This could confuse them even more. Self-help groups, which this is, should be truly run by a licensed professional in that topic. And let me see. I'm trying to keep this short. I have some quotes. A Mother's Journey from Arizona. You trust the teacher, you trust the principal, you just trust, and all of a sudden the trust is gone and you're left with fighting those you trusted to educate your child. I have an article, she talks about the vendors in the school and how you should closely look at them and research them, that's your job. She goes into detail about what she found out about vendors and the inappropriate contents in those vendors if you dig in, and it's very hard to do, I know. As I spoke to you 2 weeks ago, the product of the GSA Club is a product of GLSEN, Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. It's a national program promoting and normalizing LGBTQ plus lifestyles. I have an article, you can refer to that. Scottsdale principal required middle school teachers to attend a grooming training. It's in the article. This training was put on by that national group. Read the article and how they want to incorporate their ideology into our schools in Arizona. Peoria teacher, another article, where the GLSN is really about promoting and normalizing the actual lifestyles. And I have an article on that. In the classrooms, they want to incorporate ideologies and secret libraries. They're very transparent. I have proof in articles, okay? So no level, and as our state senator said, quote, this is another example of an inappropriate educator in the Peoria schools. In elementary school, no level of sexuality or lifestyles should be pushed under our little children. I don't care if they're pushing heterosexuality. Leave our kids alone. Teach them math, reading, and science. These actions are completely inappropriate, as someone has done who is in a position of trust with our children. I ask you, when did schools become social experiments and got away from teaching? I will tell you, our government schools is the issue. Anything run by the government eventually fails. Department of Education is not great in our national Washington, D.C., and you wonder why enrollment is down. I know many parents that would gladly leave. Even Cave Creek is wonderful, but they don't have the money or the resources, so they're stuck. And so we are counting on you and trusting you to do the research, review the articles, dig in deep. Don't let Cave Creek go down that rabbit hole like Peoria is really in big trouble. And if you think they're going to get away with this, these groups are not giving up. They have dug in deep, and they are going to keep on going till they get their way in all the schools in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Cindy Cummins.
President Hatcher, board members, Dr. Monroe. My name is Cindy Cummins. I would like to encourage the board to vote unanimously to approve placing the Mno Override that will be presented by the Executive Committee onto the November ballot. District voters should be given the opportunity to make the decision if they believe funding pay increases for teachers to lessen the gap that exists within the competitive surrounding school districts, reduce class sizes that already exceeded 40 children in several of our classrooms at the beginning of the school year is merited. Classes this large are obviously not conducive to optimal learning, let alone unrealistic expectations placed on the teachers. The success or failure of the override will be predicated on how effectively the community understands why an override has been placed on the ballot, what the allocation of the money is needed for, and how the monies will be monitored and used. The importance placed on education in all of our children into the future needs to be the strength of the community supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Dana Jaramillo.
Good evening. Thank you, President Hatcher, board members, for the opportunity to address you this evening at this special session work study meeting. My name is Dana, and I'm a parent in the district. I'll keep this short. I just want to add my voice to the support for the Mno Override to be placed on the ballot. So, and I also wish to commend the Excellence Committee for bringing this obvious need to the board for consideration. I have reviewed the Excellence Committee's presentation and fully agree with it in all aspects. Therefore, I will not restate the challenges the district faces and the needs and opportunities identified by the committee. Again, all of which I fully agree with. However, I will say this. The dedicated teachers in this district are the primary reason we have chosen to stay in this district, rather than pursue options in the area. I have seen firsthand how caring and supportive teachers have been in the district, and this has made a positive impact on my son's educational experience. The teachers have made up for the disappointingly large classroom sizes, the lackluster special offerings in elementary, and the bare basic support programs in this district. It has been the teachers that make us want to stay in the district. Therefore, I ask the board to place the proposed Mno override on the next business agenda and to vote yes to place it on the November ballot so that Cave Creek has a fighting chance to retain and support the best asset that this district has, their teachers, so that our kids can continue to have a great education. Again, thank you to each of the board members for your time this evening and your dedicated work in the district.
Thank you. Next speaker, Vincent Carlson.
First time I've ever been lost for words. Thank you for letting me speak, President Hatcher and committee. I think we all agree. We agree we need high-quality textbooks, supplemental materials, and great teachers. We agree that we need better for our kids. The issue is that takes money. Many here are fighting for better, but that will take money. An override will make all the difference. Everyone here wants better for our kids, and it's time to end making do and begging parents for money. I personally give almost 1,000 hours a year to my elementary school. I give at least 20 hours a day just at the crosswalk, so you don't have to pay for yet another employee, and our kids can remain safe. We agree we need better textbooks. We most likely agree 37 to 40 kids in a class is too many. My child's in a class that large and is falling through the cracks. All take money to fix it. I hope you will join me in a call for an override that can pay for the teachers and the materials our kids deserve. You want well-educated teachers, they cost money. And we are about to lose our best teachers to retirements and districts that easily pay 10 to 40% more just next door. More, we are currently over 80th place in pay in Arizona. Our district tried a company to promote to third world countries for teachers that I used to work for. I called them over there. They couldn't find people in the Philippines to teach Spanish because you don't pay enough. That's perspective. Our teachers are having to pay off student loans, and they are getting paid $36,000 a year, and you expect them to come to work here when you can make well over that just down the road in Phoenix? I have a lot more written here, but really it just comes down to that. An override will make all the difference. We need to show our teachers we actually appreciate them and get them the money they deserve and have the money we need to have textbooks. My kid, I asked, where's your textbook today? And he has to share it with the other class, and he's not allowed to take it out of the class because they're too afraid of it getting damaged. How is he supposed to learn when he can't even take his textbook home? Can't even take his textbook back to his homeroom and read it and study. So please, please support the override and do everything you can to convince our community that our kids are worth it. It's the one thing that we truly all love and care about, no matter what side of the political spectrum we are on. And the override can make a difference in their life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us with the crosswalk. The last speaker, Alexa Sample.
Hello. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. But we are all part of one program. It's Cactus Shadows, and it's the sports medicine program where we all intern and learn. And we're here to talk about specifically our teacher, Joe Harvey. He has made such an impact on all of our lives for the positive. We have multiple students here with us who are going to GCU next year to major in athletic training. And it's been such a positive experience for all of us that it kind of came as a shock when we found out from him that he would be looking for new jobs next year due to the lack of financial compensation he felt he was going to have next year. It's really important to us to try and do everything we can to keep him here because he has done so much to help us learn and become better people, that we had many students and parents and athletes all write letters talking about how influential he has been on them individually, and we wanted to come present them to you so that hopefully you can look at them and maybe change your decision on how his job is going to look next year, simply because if we don't hold on to the teachers that truly make students' lives better, then I feel like as a district, I don't know, that's just one of the important things that really matters. We have a couple letters here. Kira's going to read one of them.
Hi, my name is Kira Weiss. This is a letter from one of our student athletes and sports medicine beginning student. Her name is Sophie Miracle. She writes, "Hi, I'm Sophie Miracle, and I'm a junior at Cactus Shadows High School. I am in Joe's beginner's class for sports med. That class has such a big impact on my life, but not as much as the people, and that is including Joe. Joe is a great teacher who understands his students and that they struggle too. He understands everyone learns differently and adapts to their needs. Joe is a teacher I feel safe around, and someone I can go to for help when I'm having problems in school. I know other people feel this way too. He works so hard to make his students succeed and makes sure to help them if they need it. He is a great athletic trainer and teacher. I've only been at this school about a year and a half, but in that time, Joe has become my favorite teacher at this school by far. I am also a student athlete, and I am in the trainer's room a lot. Joe always lights up the room and is always helping people out. Whether I'm stressed with my sport and school, Joe is always there to listen and help me through it. He understands what it's like and how hard it can be. Joe is a great teacher, and if he is not going to be here next year, I don't want to be a part of the program. He has taught me so much in this class. I was not sure about what I wanted to do before taking sports medicine, but I am now. I want to be an athletic trainer or a physical therapist, and that is because of Joe. He has inspired me, and I want to be just like him. He has taught me to follow my dreams and do what's best for me, not what others want. He has taught me to always give 100% everything I do and never give up. He has shown me how to be a better person and has helped me grow as a person in general. If Joe is not going to be here next year, it will impact so many people's lives, especially mine. He has done a lot for so many people. Joe is in the sports medicine program. Losing him would change everything. Please think about the people that would be hurt and how much of a negative impact you would be making. We need Joe at our school. I know you probably have no idea who I am, but I'm asking you to please understand. Joe impacts so many kids and is an inspiration for so many people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for advocating. All right, that's it for call to the public. Number 4, presentations, information reports. 4.1, excellent committee presentation presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez and excellent committee members.
Member Hatcher, before we move on to 4.1, we've heard twice now in the last 2 meetings public comments about a certain club at Sonoran Trails. Could the board ask administration to give us some sort of information on that?
Yeah, yep.
And then from the last presentation with the 5 young ladies, could we also get some sort of information about Mr. Harvey? Because I thought we were trying to grow the CTE programs, and that's one that's been very successful for us for the last few years.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. This evening, we have brought together the Excellence Committee to share some information about some of the research, data, and then ultimate recommendation to the governing board. Tonight is a work study, so this is to share information with you, allow you opportunities to have a conversation for clarification, anything that you would like to ask the committee or the administration regarding the recommendation this evening. We will be bringing back the recommendation that the Excellence Committee has made to you on May 10th. So there won't be any decisions made this evening, but coming back on May 10th, we will be asking you to vote on this topic. So we're hoping tonight we'll be able to answer any of your questions that you might have or any clarification that you need to have that informed vote May 10th. So we always like to start off our presentations and review how what we are discussing with the governing board aligns with our strategic plan. So we have 5 different areas that we've identified in our strategic plan: student success, employee excellence, safe environment and culture, effective operations, resources and systems, and community partnerships. To reviewing what we're going to be discussing, information we're going to be sharing with you this evening, we feel that all 5 of those areas will be touched by this recommendation that we're sharing with you tonight. So here's the agenda and what this looks like. I have many members with us this evening that will be sharing information. We'll be talking about CCUSD challenges, the Excellence Committee, the data-driven recommendation that we're going to share, the override overview and recommendations, and then a closing. There's one minor change that was made from what you have in your packets to what you'll see in this presentation in the copy in front of you. And we had a community member, Fred, you were?
Fred Auer.
Sorry. We had him as a community member, but I've sensed, and I apologize to Fred, that he does have a student at Cactus Shadows, so we moved him over to the Cactus Shadows column. You will hear many of our committee members are community members as well. So having said that, we want to share some of the challenges with you. Mr. Coach G and Lisa Fisnell we'll be talking to you about this. Now, Coach G has been at practices, so I'm kind of going to give him a pass on this if he feels more comfortable with just having Ms. Fisno share the information, but I'm going to turn this over to them.
All right, current budget challenges. State funding, we're the 48th lowest per pupil in funding. Enrollment has declined, which impacts budget restraints. Dependency on community support, inability over time to pass bonds and Mno overrides. District relies on PTO and community partnerships. CCUSD must move funds from capital to Mno to meet budget shortfalls. And teachers are leaving the profession statewide. So these are all challenges that we discussed in our meetings.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Lisa Fisno, and I am one of the teachers in our French immersion program at DSA. Today, I'll be sharing with you opportunities to support our district and community. First, I would like to share with you a quote. I've heard it and seen it hundreds of times in my career. A great teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. I will be honest, I do not like this quote, because we all know what happens when a candle burns out. The light disappears. Teachers should not have to consume themselves to be good teachers. Someone once told me, if your job needs a motivational quote and an appreciation week, you probably are not paid enough. Teachers and staff are investing their passion, their time, their effort, and often their personal money into the classroom so they can satisfy the needs of all of their students. When I was a first-year teacher, I was lucky to be surrounded by experienced teachers who mentored me, answered my questions, and helped me learn new strategies to apply in the classroom. Our loyal teachers have invested so much into our schools, students, and community. We deserve to be shown the same loyalty through competitive pay and access to more resources. Our district has many programs that support the development of a well-rounded community members. Over my past 4 years of teaching, I have seen the growth of my students, even despite the restraints of COVID. As a bilingual person, I can share that learning a new language has not only made me see the world from a different perspective, it has also helped me understand my country better. Language is a gift we give to our students and our future community members. Actually, all youth programs are gifts. Sadly, some cost hundreds of dollars in fees to participate, like athletics and other clubs. These experiences are important to our students' development, and they should not have to choose between two sports or clubs because they cannot afford it. CCUSD also needs to maintain, improve, and develop educational programs to stay current, like career and technical education. These opportunities above and beyond the traditional classroom allow our students to develop new skills and grow into our productive community members. I will end this with something I hold close to my heart, something I've discovered when I moved here from France. Culturally, France and Arizona can be close, but also so far apart. Something we do not have back home is this sense of community. School was just that, school. No team to support, no vision to say loud and proud, no mascot to represent us. Here, I have found a community in CCUSD. You may wonder why a 20-something-year-old decided to stay when she had so many other opportunities. I could have been paid more. I could have been closer to my family. I could have lived in a climate where I'm not suffocating every summer. And yet, I have chosen to stay here. This community welcomed me with open arms, and I am so thankful for the people I have met, staff, students, parents, and other community members. This is why I have chosen to invest my heart and my passion for teaching and languages into the CCUSD community. I truly hope you'll do the same. Now, I would like to introduce Marla Rainey, who will be presenting to you our Excellence Committee.
Good evening, President and Governing Board. Thank you for allowing us to present. My name is Marla Rainey. I'm the committee chair and very proud of the work that this committee has done. I am a parent of a second grader who just walked in behind her principal there at Desert Sun Academy in the French Immersion Program, and I'm a community member. And I am just proud of the work that this committee has done. The purpose of our committee was to review the budget and capital needs of the district, as well as the data from various sources, as well as stakeholder input on the validity of that need, and then to come to consensus on making a recommendation to the governing board to go for an override and or bond, or neither, if that's what the data shared. So just for a moment, we have many committee members, as you can see here, that are in the room. So if you all don't mind taking a quick stand here and getting acknowledged for your efforts, we would appreciate that. And this was kind of our timeline. We started back in December and met several times to review data, to understand the needs, and to go over polling results, which you'll hear about in a moment. And then April 5th, we did arrive at consensus to recommend a maintenance and operations override for 2022 to the board. And then today is our presentation, and then we'll be back together May 10th to have that decision from the governing board. what I think I'm most proud of is we had a diverse representation of the CCUSD community participate in this, and the conversation around consensus and prioritizing needs, it was very eye-opening. We didn't always agree, but there definitely was themes of what was important, and I think you've heard from our previous speakers as well as the presentation packets that you've reviewed. Our teachers and staff are definitely a concern that we want to take care of. And so I'm going to invite Zach and Paul up, and they're going to give you some more information on the specific data that was reviewed.
Thanks, Marla. Hi, President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, members of the board, Dr. Monroe, members of the cabinet. My name is Zach McQuain. I am a proud father of 5 kids in the district, 2 at Cactus Shadows, 2 at Lone Mountain, 1 in the PLC program at Black Mountain, so no, I don't have a lot of time. So it's a privilege to be on this committee, and one of the things I wanted to drive home and lead in the committee is the data and the research that we collected, and really tell the story about the reason why we want to bring this recommendation to you. So one of the great resources we use is Paul Bentz, and Mr. Bentz is going to walk us through a couple slides here, and then I'll take us through the story on the other side.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. My name is Paul Bentz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Research and Strategy for High Ground. I do quite a bit of statewide, local, and regional polling, particularly in the realm of education. Part of the reason I was asked here is because I've been told often I am the person that does the survey research to not tell you what you want to hear, but rather to tell you what you need to hear. And what we did is conducted a district-wide 400 sample survey balanced for age, party, gender, region, to ensure an accurate review of what 2020 would look like. We asked some questions about the demographics of the community. We asked some of the community priorities. We also had voters rank their programs and decide what, if there's ones that they supported more or less. And then we also did a ballot test to get an understanding and help you decide if you were to move forward, what that would look like. So my goal here is to present to you some accurate and unbiased results from that survey to give you an idea of what you're looking at here. As I mentioned, we ranked priorities of the electorate, and these are all on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 meaning not at all important to 5 meaning important. That means everything, it's the Likert scale, anything above 3 is considered well regarded. And what we found is anything potentially funded by an override, if you decided to move forward with one, would be well supported, but there are various degrees of support when it comes to that. Number 1 was career and technical education at 4.43. Academic programs and increasing teacher and staff salaries and student support and counseling, that's the high number 1 tier. Number 2, actually support and counseling number 2 tier with stipends for hard to fill special education positions as well as art, music, and drama. Athletics, sports, parking, clubs, and stipends for coaches are in sort of a slightly lower tier, but again, all of these items were supported, it's just to the various degrees. What we also found is if you were to place this issue on the ballot, what we found is the likely voters had that at about 51% yes compared to 36% no, which means it does have viability on the ballot should you decide to move forward with that. I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying it's absolutely going to pass, but what we do see here is that it has a likelihood of passage. We see a strong amount of support from the voters 39 and under. There is a plurality of the 65 and older electorate that is in support, which means it's not over 50%. There's more in support than against it. We also see a large number of female supporters. And so when we look at an item like this, as I said, it does have a chance of passage, and it's part of the data-driven approach that Zach and the rest of the team put together. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Zach, who's got some really helpful information and maps that I think also help tell the story.
Thank you, Mr. Bentz. I made that joke earlier about not having time, but I want to talk about investment real quick. You've heard it from the community members, but I invest my time in my kids, and I want to show you the data around that, why we need to recommend this override to you. So this is a slide that you saw last year in a meeting, and we were ranked, I believe, in the 70s, 73, if I remember correctly, out of 104 in pay. We've dropped. When you look at the fiscal year 21, we've dropped down to 85 out of 104, which I called out so we could clearly see that. What I did on this slide is highlight the districts that we compete directly with for students and for teachers and staff. with Deer Valley, Paradise Valley paying $4,000 to $6,000 on average more to our teachers, and Scottsdale paying over $8,000 more for the teachers. So really, when we look at the investment from the districts in the communities, you can see the reflection there, and we have some work to do. So this next slide, I wanted to put a picture to that. Some of us are visual learners, myself included. So when we look at this map, you can see Cave Creek Unified School District, our average pay is the $50K mark. And you look at Deer Valley, Paradise Valley, and Scottsdale Unified are all significantly higher as far as percentage of pay goes. And bear with me, community members, on the maps. Just want to tell the story, kind of how I got to the heat map that we're going to look at. This is an overall district map for Maricopa County, just to show you where those districts lie on the map. And then one of the things that we are looking for as far as the data goes, I asked Ms. Rodriguez, give me the postal codes for our teachers to show where they live in the valley. What this heat map shows you is that there is a good percentage in that orange color. There's a good volume of teachers that live in the district, but you can also see, based on those colors of orange, yellow, green, that there are teachers that live well outside the district. Okay, so what I did was overlay that over the district map to show you that we have a significant amount of teachers living in Deer Valley, Paradise Valley, and Scottsdale Unified School Districts. So when you take that and you look at the average salary that they make, if our teachers that live in Scottsdale could go make $8,500 more than they make at Cave Creek Unified School District. So if you think about that from a teacher salary standpoint, from the cost of living, from gas, from time in the car, time with the kids, time with the family, work-life balance, it's huge. And then, like I said, Deer Valley and Scottsdale are $4,600, $6,600 respectively more than us. Now this one, when I looked at this slide and looked at this data, the only question I could come up with is where would you apply? If you were a new teacher just out of college, looking at the starting salary, our district is $37,224. Okay, where would you apply on this map if you were a new teacher? Scottsdale's paying $46, Paradise Valley's paying $48, Deer Valley's paying $42, and even outside of that, Glendale and Phoenix, $46 and $47 respectively. So where would you apply to be a new teacher? Yeah, I would struggle to apply at Cave Creek Unified. Okay, and this last slide I got is the current voter decision. So when you look at the districts, and again, I call out the ones that we directly compete with, Deer Valley, Paradise Valley, and Scottsdale Unified all have passed bonds and overrides. We're no across the board. And really you can look at the starting salary and the average salary here, and you can see that the average is a significant bump when you look at our starting salary 37 to the average of 50, and the other teachers, or the other districts, are closer as far as the average goes. So what that tells you is we have a lot of loyal teachers here in Cave Creek. We definitely want to reward those loyal teachers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pettinato, Ms. Sereno, and Ms. Workman to go over the override overview and our recommendation.
Member Hatcher, is there a time that board members can ask questions during this presentation, or we wait till the end, or is this to come back to the May 10th meeting?
No, we'll ask questions tonight. Are you okay with us stopping you, or do you want to run it through the whole thing and then have us ask? You want to do the whole thing? You're almost done, okay.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Monroe. My name is Aaron Pettinato. I'm the proud and passionate principal at Horseshoe Trails Elementary School. I'm also a CCUSD parent. Next school year, I'll have a student in kindergarten, a student in second grade, and a 7th grade Snoring Trail Stinger. Very humbled and honored to be here tonight to speak on behalf of the Excellence Committee. Once again, just like Marla, I'm very proud of the work that we've put in these past few months. And I'm here today to talk about how an Mno Override works. So first and foremost, Mno stands for Maintenance and Operations. And when we're asking for an override, what we're essentially asking is 15% of our Mno budget. And our Mno budget is determined by the state each school year, dependent on student enrollment. And Mno can be used or invested in staff salaries, classroom programming, etc. And the override is completely funded at 100% for the first 5 years. Year 6, we lose a third of that funding, and so it's only funded at 2/3. Year 7, we lose 2/3 of that funding, and we only receive a third of that money. And then in year 8, we lose it all. So it's very, very important that if we were to support and pass an override, that it does need renewal every 4 to 5 years if we want to continue to invest in these improvements, or else we would need to return to the state funding only. And so we gathered a lot of input from a bunch of different stakeholder groups. We talked with the students up at Cactus Shadows, the student cadre, as well as the Superintendent's Community Council, our Excellence Committee, as well as Paul's polling data. And we got feedback from our cabinet, which consists of Dr. Monroe, our 2 executive directors, as well as Marcy Rodriguez, our CFO, and our principal leadership team. And to ensure accountability and full transparency, we are recommending a community oversight committee as well as a monthly report to the governing board by our CFO if our community decides to pass an Mno override. Mrs. Sereno?
Good evening, President Hatcher and governing board members, along with the administration. I, too, I'm Jill Sereno, and I am the proud principal. I was always going to come up with a different descriptor to describe myself, but I think that's the best way to put it. Proud principal of Sonoran Trails Middle School. I have 2 children at Cactus Shadows, and I've been a community member for over 21 years. So I think it's important when you hear about the different representation on the committee and why it's so important when you're talking about those different roles. So as Mr. Pettinato just shared, there were several people that we talked to and got their feedback when we looked at all of the different needs. And as I wear each one of those hats as now a CCUSD employee, as a parent, and as a community member, it was like, oh my goodness, there's so many needs. Where do you begin? So in all of these different groups that convened together, I think those were the discussions, and they were rich and they were deep. And it was, we really need to figure out how do we prioritize what is best so we can best support this wonderful district that we have. So the first group that got together, they were a joint group of the Superintendent's Community Council along with the students. So we heard the voices of our kids, which we love. And you'll see some themes in the next couple of slides. That top one, even for the kids, it was to increase staff salaries. They hear it, they see it, they know how wonderful their teachers are. Everybody knows that, and they just want to support the greatness in those classrooms. And then you can kind of see down the list how those 2 groups prioritized. Okay, then as an excellence committee, again, spending several amount of time. Again, deep and rich discussions about what is it that we need to do if we're going to have this override, to ensure that it passes. Again, number 1, increasing staff salaries. We have to be competitive. We heard earlier about Scottsdale, about Paradise Valley, about Deer Valley. It breaks my heart to know that we are losing some of our most gifted and talented teachers because, frankly, they just can't afford to be up here. Staff, let's talk about just staff in general, those who, they're not going to drive north to make $12.80 an hour, and that's the reality. So again, the Excellence Committee, you can see what our priorities were. And then we heard from Paul, the polling ranking override, when asked of 400 people, I think it was. Again, you can see what the random calls were and what their priorities were for why they would support an override in our district. And then finally, it came to the admin team along with the group of principals. And again, I wish everyone could have been in that room. Again, we look at all of these different needs, and we know just how important they are. But at the end of the day, if we can't retain the wonderful people that we currently have, none of the other stuff matters. If we can't recruit from those that we have lost, then none of these other things matter. So first and foremost, we've got to increase our teacher and staff salaries, and then all of this stuff will follow from that. Thank you. Ms. Workman.
Good evening, Madam President, Governing Board, and Administration. Thank you so much for your dedication and your time to our community. My name is Carrie Workman. I'm a longtime parent in the district and community member. Our journey started here the day the doors opened at Horseshoe Trails, and it ends next year when my daughter graduates from Cactus Shadows. So essentially, I'm speaking to you today as a concerned community member because our family will have graduated from the district by the time the benefits of this Mno override come into play. Thank you. The Excellence Committee has prepared an example of one projected option. This example demonstrates what we might do with the increased funding provided our community should decide to invest in and pass the proposed override. We operated under a few important assumptions that you can see in front of you. Our projections are based on the projected fiscal year 22-23 Mno budget. That includes, in this projection, no student growth and the 2% increase in base level per pupil amount that will be provided by the state funding formula. As you can see, a 15% Mno override would approximately equal $4.6-ish million additional to our budget. An example of that using those assumptions, we calculated that if the override were to pass, one opportunity we have might be to increase teacher salary by 10% and increase classified salary by 10%, which would equal roughly $1.4 million expenditure to the district for teacher salary and $1,048,000 in classified salaries, for a total of $2,471,213 approximately. So you can see that $2 million number and the $4 million number gives us some opportunities to meet some of those requests that the community members that Jill spoke about we were looking at, or to even increase salaries higher. And if you'd like some more information, please refer to the appendix for more detailed information on how we came up with this one scenario. We'll talk about other scenarios later if you choose to support putting the Mno override on the budget. On the ballot in November. And I would like to bring Marcy back up, Marcy Rodriguez, and she's going to tell you about how this investment in our schools will impact our neighborhoods and our community.
Thank you. Great information. Thank you to our committee members. So, President Hatcher and members of the board, we want to talk about community investment. The community investment comes from their property taxes. So what we would be asking is for an increase to support the override. So I want to kind of give you a little bit of a scenario for what that might look like. Now, we know market prices for our homes have gone crazy. But for tax purposes, there is a limited value that you see on your property tax bill. That limited value can only increase by 5% a year. So even though your home has maybe doubled in value, what you pay taxes on cannot. And that is set in statute, and there's a limitation. So I wanted to point out that the average home limited value was about $557,000 last year. It's gone up to $582,000, which is about that 5%. But what you're taxed on is 10% of that value. And the override rate would be 0.19. So that rate, then the calculation, the way the taxes work, is you take that rate and you divide that by 100, and then you multiply that by your assessed value, 10%. So I wanted to kind of outline, and this was helpful, and our community members said, hey, Marcy, how does that work? Because this is like, when I read the tax bill and I just see what bottom line is, I want to understand how that's calculated and how the investment in our schools then would come back. So a 0.19 for an average home means $110, not thousand, $110 annually, which equates to about $9.22 a month. So for the investment in our schools and in our community, this is what we would be asking for our taxpayers, our property taxpayers, to contribute. If you own $1 million home, then the calculation is the same calculation. You would just plug $1 million in there, and it would be about $190,000 for $1 million home, $15.83 a month. So that gives you a feel. Now, this information may vary a little bit based on what that average property tax value and how that adjusts and what your home value is. This information will be in the ballot. Information on what is going to be in the ballot, a sample will be coming to the governing board when we put that on the agenda on May 10th. So you'll be able to see what the property owners will see. So we thought this might be helpful to some of the community members. So here's the example that I was talking about. So limited value, low, but can only increase 5% a year. Your full cash value as assessed by the county assessor's office. So the district has nothing to do with these property values. The county assessor determines what these values are. And then Zestimate, which we all love to see those numbers, right? So if the county says your limited value is $563, we picked a home that was over on Cave Creek. I worked with our experts at Stifel to help us determine what these numbers were. But you can see the differentiation and how confusing it would be to property owners saying, well, my house is worth $1.6 million. My taxes are going to go through the roof next year. Well, they're not. They're going to your property value can only go up 5%. So the taxes will probably be adjusted accordingly at that 5%. And even at times, when our overall property value, limited value increases, that drives the rate down because there's more property values, more property owners to help carry what our fixed budget's going to be. Remember, we are not a growing district. We've seen a little bit of adjustment this year, so as our budget stays the same and these values go up, our rates go down. So there is a possibility that this could be rate neutral when we put it on the ballot, and that would be something that I'm going to look at with the people from Stifel to really project what that will be in the next couple of years based on what our projected total assessed value is. So having said that, that gives you an idea of the impact that the override would make in the community. And now I'm going to turn it over to John Craggle, and he will do closing for us.
To this esteemed board, thank you so much for your time, your leadership, your service. I am a community member. I am a parent of 3, as well as I pastor a church and a faith leader in this community. And it's really an honor to be a part of the Excellence Committee, and I applaud the work of the people that have really shared the data with you. And really my heart as a parent and to stand up here before you is to really close with what the data means. Because every number counts and every number tells a story. And so at the end of the day, when we are thinking through what is the purpose of the governing board, it says on your website page that the vision for this governing board is to inspire students to become independent, contributing, and engaged members of society. And that your mission is just simply 2 words, to inspire excellence. Now, also on that governing board page, there's a list of governing board beliefs. And one of those beliefs, to which I fully agree, is that our schools are the cornerstone of this community. You know, you are tasked with the challenge of stewarding the most precious gift that we have in this community, our kids. While the mission might be inspiring excellence, I might reword that mission a little bit and simply say that Cave Creek is for kids. See, I'm a son of 2 teachers. And so I grew up in a home seeing all the extra hours that went in, the extra miles that were taken, the money spent out of personal pockets to make an impact on the lives of children. I've seen the impact of how a good teacher can shape the life of a child, and that good school districts can shape future generations to come. And now, as a parent of 3 children, 1 in middle school, 2 in elementary, I have personally witnessed the greatness, the value, and the potential of the Cave Creek School District. I can say that because I see the dedication of teachers everywhere. Teachers like Mrs. Harrison, someone who's been in the school district for over 18 years, and more importantly to me, been long enough to be the kindergarten teacher for all 3 of my children. She taught them how to read. She made learning fun. She gave them confidence in the classroom. My kids, to this day, run out of the car. Hopefully not from me, but to school. But they are excited to go to school. And that loyalty, that commitment goes beyond the time that she would teach. Because, see, when the younger ones would go and we would meet up at school functions, and like the hoedown on May 7th, small plug, Horseshoe Trails. And when we're there, she asks questions about the siblings, how they're doing. She knows them by name. It's not just my child, though. I was attending a friend's graduation party just this last weekend. And do you know who was there? Mrs. Harrison. Because it turns out she had taught that family's children as well. Everyone. And when I think about this district, I think about the resource that is our teachers. Because simply put, Mrs. Harrison cares for kids. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves is, while our teachers truly care for kids, as a district, collectively, all of us together, not just the board, but all of us, we have to ask ourselves, do we truly care for our teachers? Now, I want you to picture for a moment just how you got here to tonight's meeting. My guess is most of us drove here. And while I don't know the make or model of your car, I do know this, that all cars have this in common, that has both a rear view mirror and a windshield. Now, I ask you a seemingly silly question, but an important one. Which is bigger? See, the windshield is dramatically bigger because of its importance. While it is important to know and to be able to see where you've been, the bigger question has to be the decision you make of where are you going to go. Tonight, you've heard the data and the numbers and the need and the story of where we've been and all the challenges that have got us to this current position. But the most important question we can ask ourselves as parents, as community leaders, as administrators, is not how did we get here, but where do we go now? What are the decisions today that can shape this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years from now? We have to ask ourselves, where do we want to be as a community? And the question that I keep thinking is, are we going to be able to recruit and attract and retain the future Mrs. Harrisons. Because this is personal. This is real. And right now, when I look at our current situation, I'm not confident that we can. But here's the good news. This is a problem that we can fix. This is a problem that there is a solution to and an answer to. There are things that come from outside forces like pandemics and crazy things that happen that are outside of our control. But this situation, this problem, is in our control. But an override is not so much about being overwhelmed by the need. And trust me, there's a lot. It's much more about overcoming present obstacles to ensure and guarantee a better future and solution for our kids. And so as a board, as a community member, as leaders here, we have to decide what is the story we want to tell. Because the numbers show the need, but this goes much deeper than that. And so the question I ask you is, what is the legacy that we want? What is the identity of Cave Creek? This is where we live. These are our kids. This is our town. This is our identity. And so I humbly come before you to ask you to consider, to approve putting forth this override so that we can take public what we already know in private and personally. And let us go and share with all of the valley that here in Cave Creek, we care for kids. Thank you.
We're here. Okay.
Well, that is the presentation. I want to thank our committee members for being here this evening and all of the time that they've put in to bringing this recommendation to the board. And if we want to open it up to questions, President Hatcher?
Yes, please. Board?
Yeah, I'd like to start by just thanking the Excellence Committee for all your work. I know of the time and effort that you put into doing this. So thank you from somebody that's lived here for 23 years and taught here for, 8 years. And, let's be honest, left for this very reason. So I'm well acquainted with what you're talking about. So I don't have a lot of questions. I just had a couple things that I wanted to discuss real quick for you to consider. There were lots of numbers, and I appreciated that. And I am married to an accountant, so that helped too. But what I saw was these two different numbers. I saw the average salary, and I saw the starting salary, and how the average salary was really going to be helped by this 10% increase. That was key, and that was important. And the index showed that really well, really good as well. But my concern with this was the starting salary. If we give our teachers, our starting teachers, a 10% increase, that would bring us up from $37,224 to $40,946. That's still not competitive. That's still $1,800 below our nearest lowest competitive district. That would be Deer Valley. That's about $1,800 less a year. So I would like you to consider a little bit more. 15% would bring us up to $42,807, which would get us $57 more than DVUSD. 20% for starting teachers would get us up to $44,668. So these are things I'd like you to consider because the gentleman that said, where would you apply? 37, 40, I'm still looking someplace else. But 42, 44, and knowing this community and the culture that we've talked about, then I'm rethinking where I'm going to be going. So that's it for right now. Thank you.
If we don't pass an override, what are some of the consequences of that?
Yeah, President Hatcher, members of the board, I'll jump in on that one. On the not so happy-go-lucky question, I get to answer that one. Well, first of all, let's hope that's not the case, but just a few things that the board is probably aware of, because we've talked about this before. If an override did not pass, it's very realistic. If the slow enrollment decline continued, or we even continued to maintain enrollment, we'd seriously have to consider closing a school. Redrawing attendance boundaries for our schools, which could also include repurposing schools, a reduction of transportation. What that would look like, it would still be to be determined. And then the obvious things such as increased class sizes, increased fees, which our community already shoulders on the fees, reduction in operations and maintenance services. For example, someone cleans the classroom once every night and trashes out, that could turn into once a week or once every other week, something as simple as that. And then a big one is obviously a reduction and an adjustment to our student programs, which we would hate to see our academic programs. So those are a few of the lists, President Hatcher.
Okay, thank you. And also, what did the committee find as obstacles to passing an override when you surveyed the public? What were some of the obstacles they mentioned?
Maybe Marcy or Marla, if someone wants to step up to the microphone to talk about that, or even Paul.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, barriers
that would be great,
to
Paul.
passing an override.
Madam Chair, members of the board, obstacle-wise, what I said, as I showed, most of the programs were well regarded, so it's not a challenge facing any particular program or any opposition in that realm. In the electoral environment, it is as we see across the country here, there is a pessimistic environment. There are challenges facing public education on the national level that are speaking to this, and information has been referred to by others that may be happening in other places, not necessarily involving directly with this district, that does raise concerns environmentally here that may play a little bit of a role, but there's nothing specific that is standing in the way.
Thank you.
I think it's important to recall the pie chart that we had as well. The people that we're speaking to, if I can get back to it quickly enough, this pie chart that Paul put together, I went too fast. We're speaking to those people in the yellow, and we're speaking to the people in the green. And if we add all of those up, and we're speaking to some of those people in the probably no area. So we're talking to people who are sympathetic to our cause. We don't need to worry about the definitely no, and that's only 22.5%. So we need to focus on the rest of the colors.
If we do pass this, are we already working on a plan to talk to these voters? I think part of the problem that the bond didn't pass was that too many of these yellow and green, light green folks did not get talked to. Is there a plan in place to directly talk to these voters so that we can get them on our side?
I would, excuse me, we have not started talking about a plan yet because we would need the governing board to approve that, to have it on the ballot. And once that occurs, then a political action committee would be developed. And that political action committee then would go through that whole process and determine how best to reach that audience.
If we lose experienced teachers, and I know we have lost experienced teachers, I'm assuming that's going to take that average salary down further as we acquire new hires.
Yes, President Hatcher, that's correct. As we lose our retired teachers, one of our concerns is being able to attract new teachers to the district.
President Hatcher, it goes to what Vice President Fortney was talking about the starting salary. As we age out and we lose our veteran teachers, how are we attracting the newer generations, the newer Mrs. Harrisons on the other end?
Just say one more thing. Lots of stuff. But one of the things that we were talking about here, was reducing the class size, and that would entail hiring a lot of new teachers. So again, just going to go back to that $37,000. If we want to hire these teachers, that will reduce our class sizes. The work you guys did was amazing. I got to sit in on one of those, and that was amazing to sit there and listen to that. Thank you for all that you did, and I would just keep working on that. Oops, and I wasn't on there the whole time. Sorry about that.
I could hear you, though.
I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to clarify, this, I'm trying to get to it because I'm not as fast here. This is a sample, and we did discuss that the starting salaries might have to look different, but we wanted to just give a sample of what a proposal could be. Knowing that the starting salaries, we have to keep in mind too that housing in our area is very limited for starting out career people, right? They're just not, we know they're driving here, and so we have to keep that into consideration too.
I just want to thank everybody for all the time. I loved the heat map because it showed how many people do commute to our district, and the starting salary was actually probably the most shocking number to me as well in comparison for competitiveness. So thank you for that. John, I was hoping for a little bit of spoken word, but you almost got there. In the committee, I know we just tried to go for a bond less than a year ago. Was that considered as well, having both on the ballot?
Yeah, Member Walker. Paul, do you want to come up and speak to that with Marla?
One of the issues that you will find in an electoral environment, number one, just from experience, is when you put two items on the ballot, what likely happens, and you've seen it in a couple different places, in Peoria, Mesa, and others, is likely what happens is one issue will pass and one issue will fail. In an area that has any sort of conservative lean to the electorate, it's very difficult to pass two items at once. We did specifically ask a question that said if there was also a bond on the ballot, what would likely be your position? I would vote yes on both. I'd vote yes on only the override. I'd vote yes on only the bond, or I would vote no on both. One of the audiences that we talked about already was that 25% that we saw in the red there. They're no on both. That audience is pretty stable, right? On the no for everything, they will not pass a tax for any reason. But what we did see is what I combined is the yes on both and the yes on the bond, or yes on both and yes on the override. What we find then is the likelihood of a passage is that we see a slight decline in the override at about 49, and the issue is basically what happens is it leans slightly towards the bond. So if you were to put both on there, you'd only get one of the two. There's not an appetite among the electorate to support both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Before you step away, Mr. Benz, did you or your company help put data together for the bond issue that was put on the ballot last year?
No, sir. There was another company that did polling in that previous survey. The only question that I conducted this time was the item of having both issues on the ballot. That was conducted by somebody in a previous time.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that individual's first name is Paul, so there are multiple Pauls. But two Pauls don't make a right. So.
If we decide to go out for an override, you parents that have spoken, would you go out on the stump?
Yeah, I'm going to say the people that we've worked with will definitely do that.
And President Hatzer, one of the reasons why we developed and members of the board developed this PowerPoint in this fashion is so it's easier to tell a story. So we are able to give the data, we can give it to the community, they can look at it, it's very clear to read and understand why we brought this to your attention.
Yeah, what you guys have done tonight is really powerful. you're preaching to a choir when you talk to me, because I've been a stakeholder here for decades and was a teacher. But your stories are powerful. And so if the board votes that way next May, I think it's important to tell that story, because you put, the faces of your children metaphorically behind what you were presenting to us. It's not just numbers. So thank you so much. Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, for Mr. McQueen, when you were doing your presentation, you had the chart that had all the school districts in Maricopa County. Did the committee break that out a little finer to the school districts that were maybe similar size to the Cave Creek district?
Mr. Brown, that is a good question. No, we did not break it down based on size. We just looked at the data provided from the Arizona Journal
Okay.
at a high level.
All right, thank you.
And Member Brown, I would point out that's one of our challenges. I think that's a really good question that he asks, is although we're 5,000-ish, we're surrounded by giants. That's what I always tell people. And we're compared to Paradise Valley, Deer Valley, and Scottsdale. And so although I think Member Brown asked a really good question, that those districts are 3 or 4 times our size, our community demands that level of excellence that we have. And so we have more of an upward climb being a smaller district to do that, and compared to maybe a district our size, like Member Brown asks. I think that's a very good question, and we deal with those comparisons, and not just financially, but on all our other academics and programming, that we want to be able to compete with those districts, because as you can see, our teachers live there, and it's not too far of a drive to enroll in one of those schools.
Yeah, and one more thing that it's been an observation of mine for years, especially when I was working in the district, is that, and I've said this before here, that sometimes I think it's not transparent to the community that that we need funding because of what some of you all have said tonight, because the teachers pull it off. They work their tails off and they pull it off. And so the folks that live in our district who don't have children may think, why do I need to invest in the district? They're doing well. Well, it's because of the teachers working their tails off.
And Member Hatcher, I think you captured it perfectly. The candle quote, the level of excellence that our teachers have is just second to none, and we're almost a victim of our success. Yeah. That our teachers can pull off such a great product for our kids, our coaches, our classified staff, and then when you see the data, it's pretty alarming when you really look at the data. And next week we celebrate our teachers through Teacher Appreciation Week, and our PTOs and community groups spoil them and make them know how special we are. But the candle still continues to burn, as the saying goes. And sometimes after a few years, teachers may feel underappreciated, undervalued, and to Vice President Fortney's point, simply transfer, go to another neighboring school district for a monetary value of $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 more. So I would just kind of say in closing, as the board considers this over the next few weeks, and it's brought back to the board for a vote at the next board meeting, that let's not neglect to forget next week is our Teacher Appreciation Week, and we really want to show our teachers that we care about them. And I think the story really tells itself that the committee has done. I want to thank the committee. Thank you for your time spent since 2021, December. I can remember when the bond failed, I needed a good night's rest first, and I woke up resolved, because I'm a bulletin board guy as a former athlete. Tell me we can't do this, and it's going to spur me on. But if you look at that timeline, about a month after the bond passed was the bond failed was the first Excellence Committee meeting. So thank you, committee members, for rolling up your sleeves, for putting your shoulder to the wheel and saying we need to do this for our community. We need to invest in our kids through our teachers. So I appreciate Marla and the committee, the work that Mrs. Rodriguez has done, and for this very well done presentation tonight.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah. First, I want to thank everybody who was on this Excellence Committee. It's a huge time commitment that all of you invested. You took time away from your individual lives and basically donated it to Cave Creek. And I appreciate what you've done. You've done a lot of work, and you've provided a lot of beneficial information, so thank you. I do have a couple of nerdy kind of questions. If this is on the ballot, what is the cost to us, the hard dollars? What's this going to cost us?
Mrs. Rodriguez, I'll let Mrs. Rodriguez answer that question. But as the board is aware, every time that you put something on the ballot, there's a cost that's incurred to the district office. And every failed election, every passed election. So, Mrs. Rodriguez, do you want to touch on what that amount would be?
Yes, thank you, members of the board. The cost of the election where we are sharing a ballot with other initiatives. I looked back, and when we had EVIT on the ballot, was an even year, and it cost the district $38,000. So my expectation would be that the cost to put it on the ballot in an even year, which this would be, is probably going to be approximately $40,000.
And talking about the election, of all of the voters, eligible voters, what was the percentage, do you know, of eligible voters that actually voted the last time when the bond was on the ballot?
Member Busby, that is a great question. I don't know if I can pull that one off. I might have to look back. I do remember it was about 23,000 voters in a non-election year.
And for the percentage of, which I didn't expect you to.
Do you know what it is, Marcy? The percentage? I'd have to look back.
The percentage of eligible voters, we had 40% participation in the bond election.
Okay.
One of the highest participations of any of the districts in the Maricopa County area. Yes, and that is correct. Thank you for that. And we were the only thing on the ballot. I think there was in Scottsdale, there might have been a couple of Scottsdale initiatives, but for us to be the only, and it was all mail-in, that was very high participation.
Thank you.
Yeah, in an election year, we would expect a very crowded ballot, governor, judges, Senate, state legislature. So this ballot will be very different than the one from last year.
How was the sample, there were 400 people selected. How were they selected to be part of the survey?
See, this is the fun when I get 2 minutes to talk about a 10-minute survey and a process that's involved with it. So it is, what we do is, first of all, we poll likely voters. So that means people who have a history of voting within the district. We call people on home phones and cell phones, whatever phone number that they've actually registered. Each person gets a live individual calling them and asking them these questions. It was about a 10-minute long survey, and then we use that to balance it across. Basically, anybody who's got a phone number within the district that has a history of voting is put in, and then we use that to create the random list and set quotas so that we balance it based on age, party, region, and gender to reflect what we expect 2022 to look like. 2020 was the second highest voter turnout in state history. It was 79.9%. Midterm elections are much lower. They will be about, if we are lucky, it'll be at about 60%. When the president's not on the ballot, turnout is down. I will tell you this, that the turnout for a 2022 election will still be significantly higher than what we just saw in 2021. Off-cycle or odd-numbered year elections typically have much lower turnout. If it was, in fact, 40%, that's spectacular, because I would bet it would be closer to about 29 or 30% based on just sort of the historic statewide norms. So we're really looking about, you'll see an uptick in voter participation year over year, because not every election is created equally. But what we do is we balance that based on these folks that have a history of voting. So we talk to them, and they provide that accurate reflection of the overall audience.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just one other question. One of the people who got up to speak made a comment about how, you know, to turn the question around, it's, I don't like this, I like that, and turn it to a positive. So looking at all of this great information, a question came to mind. There were, whatever it was that we didn't pass that bond initiative, there were a majority of people on that, in that election that voted no. But have we invested the time to really understand why they voted no? I mean, we can have a perception, oh, they just vote no. They don't vote yes on anything. But have we really taken the time to understand why they vote no?
Yeah, Member Busby, I'll take a stab at that. You know, I guess it's fair to say that I don't sleep super well knowing that if we flip 376 votes that bond passes, and I take a lot of that on myself. Have I been able to reach out to those groups to help educate them so they can make a good decision? As the superintendent, that's my role, to give people the right data so that they can make an educated vote. Was I able to connect with all age populations? And I think the answer is probably no, because we lost. However, after we lost, there was a series of debrief meetings that happened, myself with some community members, myself with cabinet, myself with our principals, to debrief on why we think it didn't pass and what strategy we might have to use moving forward, because obviously, if we want a different result, we have to strategize it different. So to your point, why did people vote no? Were we able to reach out to the population? As Carrie said, as Carrie Workman said, the 15% that's unsure. Did we spend too much time with the 22% or with the people that were an adamant no? And so I think we've been in the process of trying to do what you ask. And if the board approves to put this on the ballot, I think you would see the Political Action Committee talk about exactly that. How do we do it different? What's the debrief that was learned from the bond and the failure to pass that?
Thank you. I do have one other question. To do all of this surveying, what was the cost to the district for that?
Marcy, do you want to take a stab at that? It was close to $10,000. Do you remember the amount off the top of your head, or Paul?
Let me clarify the
Yeah.
question. We hired Mr. Bentz to come do this, so whatever he charged us and whatever the expense was to do the survey, what for this Excellence Committee project, what did it cost us?
And I do not remember the exact amount off the top of my head, but I know it was around $10,000, $11,000.
I'll ask this question to Ms. Rodriguez, since this is the slide that says participants' recommendations, implementation recommendations after approval, Community Oversight Committee. Could you maybe go into a little bit of detail about how that committee would be formed, who would be on it, would there be a length of terms? But then also, do we run up against any kind of issues with state law or statute having another group oversight over taxpayers' money?
Member Brown, the answer to the question of how that would be formed, that will be something that we can have a conversation around as a leadership team. There are many other districts that do have oversight committees for certain types of, they have budget committees, they have community oversight committees for overrides, for bonds. So against the state law, I do not believe so. It's practiced at other districts. So at the point of where this override is voted upon and approved, my first charge will be, and even probably before that, once it gets on the ballot, how do you run your oversight committees? Is there an application process for the members? Are there certain qualifications you're looking for members to be on these committees? So that would be a process that I would look at. my vision of how the committee would work is there would be quarterly meetings, similar to what the schools do with their site councils. You know, where they bring their site councils in, they get input from their site councils. These are people who are used to looking at budgets. Part of the site council's role is to look at budgets and approve different items. So my thought would be that they would be coming in quarterly. We'd have a meeting. I'd review data with them. They would be able to ask questions, and any concerns that they may have, I would be able to provide additional information, because my goal is to keep the board updated as well. Now, I provide you monthly reports with financials. You know, you see expenditures, you see the revenues we're bringing in. The same would be with the override. How are we coming with? We said we were going to hire 10 new teachers to class size. Have we been successful? Are we seeing increased recruitment opportunities? And then you would see how those monies are being spent on a monthly basis.
Would that information need to be included in the election pamphlet before the election as information going out to the community?
So one of the things that we're going to do different this year with the election ballot that I haven't seen us do in the past is put an FAQ in the ballot. So I'm working on FAQs. I'm looking at samples of what other districts have done, but I'm also listening to our community and their input, the types of concerns, the types of questions. So the great thing about having the community, the broad community members that we had on this committee, where they were able to bring, Marcy, the community wants to know this. They want to know that. They have questions about this. They have concerns about this. How are we addressing that? So I'm going to take and listen to what our committee has brought and put an FAQ together. And hopefully in the ballot, that FAQ will help inform our community about some of the things that we're dedicated and committed to do when this override passes, so that it will give them some comfort in supporting us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Member Brown, that is a great suggestion. As we were debriefing about the bond, we talked about the FAQ. Other districts that have been successful have submitted an FAQ into the ballot language. You have a lot more leverage and can play with that language, whereas some of the really official stuff that the board votes on, we can't change that language. You know, when it talks about budget override and it looks very official and it can intimidate people. However, an FAQ you can, and that's something we failed to do with the bond. We had an FAQ on the website that people would copy and paste on social media, and we'd add to the FAQ as questions come up. But, you know, we were chasing our tail a little bit, maybe a little more in the reactive mode with it. So I think to be in the proactive mode, we'll put the FAQ in that ballot language, so when people get that book a month before you get your ballot, you can read those simple questions, kind of like Member Brown, and we can put it in very intelligible language that people can really understand. So I think that will make I would like to believe that's going to make a significant difference for one-stop shopping. People can get answers to their questions by just reading that book, the booklet.
And then one more, Ms. Rodriguez, on the slide that was example of proposed expenditures. I know Member Fortney had mentioned about if we increase those percentages, is that also something that needs to be determined before we put it into the election booklet, so the community knows exactly what percentage out of that 4.6 million is actually going to go to teacher salaries?
So we've pondered that question, Member Brown, of exactly how precise do we need to be in the ballot. So what the law requires us to do, unlike what the bond you had to put dollar amounts assigned to each category because you were held accountable for spending a certain amount for what you had identified. With an override, however, what you are required to do is list your priorities. So we aren't required to put dollar amounts in there. It's something that we as a committee did discuss, like how important is that to our community to know exactly and what we're going to spend. And the next question is, if we don't put it in the ballot, who determines what is spent in each of those areas? So for teacher salary, the governing board determines that. So you will be presented then with recommendations from we will have, I'm not quite sure what that group will look like, but we will have recommendations we'll look at where we can be. I mean, remember, Fortney, your comments are well taken. So we know where we need help. We need help in that starting salary. So what do we put on the starting salary? Do we bump up the starting salary and just add that across the board to all of our existing teachers? Do we get the percentage high enough to where it meets something that's acceptable? So those are conversations and recommendations that will come to the board in the form of a salary schedule. So I'm anticipating when the override passes that we will then start having a work study about, okay, here are some of the recommendations, here are some of the options, and the governing board will obviously have input on how those monies are allocated once we get the approval from the taxpayers of the district.
Thank you.
And the governing board and the oversight committee help to show transparency, in a transparent manner, fidelity and adherence to the pamphlet language that is presented. So that's an extra step that we want to make sure that we have in there. So we're being true to our voters and understanding what their vote means and showing fidelity to that. We had remarks in the committee in the past about different things that had passed and talk in the community about, well, they said this and they did something differently. It's our intention to not do that, to absolutely spend our money on our teachers and how the bond pamphlet language lays out. And we'll be able to see that through monthly reports to the board and through the efforts of our oversight committee.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you again for your work and coming before us this evening and making that presentation. Number 5, old business, there is none. Number 6, new business, there is none. Number 7, future agenda items, there are none. Number 8, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.